Welcome back to Maximum News, ladies and gentlemen. This is the episode for January 15th of 2023. I'm your host, as always, your friendly neighborhood Simpsons-kin, Max Derrat, and I'm joined, as always, by...
Sybsidian of the Triple S League. How you doing?
I'm doing, I don't want to say, because I might give away certain thoughts of something that we're about to talk about, but I will ask you the same question. How are you, man?
Pretty good. I'm really trying to be more optimistic about games and just life in general this year, because the last couple of years have been kind of poo-poo for just the state of things, right? Not for me personally. I've actually had, last year was actually really good for me personally.
Yeah, me too.
But, that's on a personal level. And there's something to be said about being, super happy when everybody else is around you is, super depressed and whatnot. So, didn't want to be that happy in the sense of, making a bit of a mockery of everybody else. And the state of things is definitely going south. I will definitely say that the general state of things was pretty terrible last year on all fronts, and we've had a pretty bad start to this year. Again, as far as the state of things go, and what do I mean by that? Just a summation of basically everything, right?
Yeah, politics,
world
media,
events, local events,
economy,
everything big, small, weather, everything, right? It's we're not looking like we're having a great start to this year. Of course, the whole Wizards of the Coast DnD thing has just been
we're gonna get into that,
and we're gonna get into that. But just generally speaking, I'm hoping that things get better.
Yeah, and in regards to the world of gaming, at least, there's reason to suspect that things will get better. We're coming out of the pandemic, the negative effects as it relates to the entertainment industry, I suppose. We're starting to get beyond that. Got a lot of great games coming out at the beginning of this year, a lot of game-related media, and speaking of which, there's this little TV show that just released. At the time of recording this, I just finished watching the opening episode for the Last of Us TV show, released on HBO. Just finished watching it in less than an hour ago, and I'm here to give you my thoughts. Now, first, before I get into my relationship to the Last of Us franchise, so I figured I'd just ask you, did you play the original game? What'd you think of it?
I watched, that was when, a lot of game streaming really actually started to take off. And there was the certain YouTubers that will not be named due to their, due to the history that happened with them, but they did a lot of these play tests where they got people, just regular people who did not normally play video games, to play through the intro to The Last of Us, and it was pretty shocking and pretty amazing to see.
I remember that.
And it was really cool to see that whole thing unveil and showcase what video games can actually do to a community of people, and how important art is in that sense, because I really honestly do believe heavily that video games are art, and they do play an enormously important role in that. And just to kind of reinforce that as a generalized concept, it's really important. So that's how that went.
In regards to what you said about that period of time when people were doing reactions to the opening of The Last of Us, it's because of the shocking stuff that happens not only in the beginning but throughout that entire first game. The fact that a game was willing to go there was really somewhat novel for gaming at the time when it released almost 10 years ago. It released in 2013 and it's now 2023. And for that reason, for people like me and millions around the world, the first Last of Us is sacred. It's not in my top 10, but it's 100% in my top 20. I love The Last of Us. I played it the first day that it came out. I remember lining up outside a Future Shop, which to our American, you remember that? I lined up at Future Shop for American viewers and around the world. It's sort of like Best Buy for America. That's what we called it in Canada, Future Shop. I got it from there, played it, loved the crap out of it. Now, in regards to the TV show, you and I, leading up to this, we had, and a lot of other people had, a lot of reasons to be suspicious. We've had a couple of really good game adaptations lately, Arcane being the best one, Sonic the Hedgehog. The movies, they're not great, but they're enjoyable. I would say they're good movies overall. But for the most part, video game movies haven't been particularly good because, there's a myriad of reasons we won't go into. All that aside, Syb, it's great. It's really great.
Good.
Yeah. In fact, I will go as far to say that I don't think there's anything about this first episode that I disliked. And I'm trying my absolute best to be honest with myself here. I'm trying not to let my fanboy element cloud my judgment here. I am really trying to be as objective as I can. I can't think of anything that I disliked about it. Let's just go through the list of things that, like, there's actually a long list of things that I gotta get to that I like about it. I will say before that, though, even though there's nothing that I dislike, I do have one or two worries, but I'll say that for the end. Mostly just off the top, I think it was a really, really great first episode, and there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic for the show moving forward. First and foremost, let's start with the performances. I said from the day that I learned that Pedro Pascal was cast as Joel, that was perfect casting. I didn't realize how perfect the casting was until I watched him in this episode. Syb, there's no other word in my mind that comes up but perfect. He somehow manages to be extremely familiar to the Joel that we played in the game, but also managing to be his own Joel at the same time. I don't know how to explain it, but he somehow manages to harmonize those two things without them mutually contradicting each other, you know? It's wonderful. You really get an understanding and a reappreciation for the pain that Joel went through. We all know what he went through, but just in case you never know nothing about The Last of Us, I won't say what it is. Other characters, Marlene and Tess, fantastic. Their roles in the original game were relatively small compared to, like Joel and Ellie. They're the main focus. But what we see in this episode is a hint of what's to come for these characters and how they're expanded upon compared to the game. And what they do to expand upon their roles is actually quite compelling. The character of Tommy, it is shocking to me how much Gabriel Luna as Tommy and Pedro Pascal as Joel, their voices sound so much like the actors that played them in the game. I couldn't believe it. Like, you just close your eyes and listen to Gabriel Luna speak as Tommy, you think you hear Tommy and you see Tommy in your mind. That's how close it is. And he does a lovely job as well. Ellie, I'll get to her in a moment. But don't worry, I did say there's nothing I actively disliked. I'm just going to save her for a little later, okay? Cinematography. Syb, they did an excellent job showing how the world went completely to crap. I can't even formulate the words of how well they nailed the way the quarantine zones look and like the way the outbreak is handled. It's gorgeously horrifying. And that's another thing I want to mention. I don't normally get scared by stuff. When I played the original Last of Us game, I wasn't scared by the clickers. I know other people were, but I wasn't. But man, the horror of the clickers and the threat that they present feel fresh. It sounds weird saying this about like something zombie related, which has been done to death, but it's really, really palatable. And there's a great sense of suspense, dread, and all the different words. Like, they really, really nailed the horror element. Music, great mix of the old and the new. They have the music from the game, but also, changing it up for the TV show. It's really good. And then finally, in regards to the good stuff, is there anything new? When it comes to video game adaptations, you want them to remain faithful, but you also want them to add new stuff that makes it more than just a retread. You want it to feel familiar, but also feel fresh. Aside from Marlene and Tess, which I already said, they added stuff with, they actually do add a whole bunch of other stuff on top of that. Not only do they add context to stuff that happened in the game, they also change things at very, very, very wisely and make them different so that they feel fresh and unexpected in the show. So just a couple of non-spoiler examples. At the beginning of the game, like right at the very beginning of the game, there's something involving a watch that isn't really given a whole lot of explanation. They go into that and they do a really, really lovely job in the TV show. And then as far as things that are changed, there's a character at the very beginning of the game named Robert. They change some things regarding him that work. And it's actually done in a somewhat shocking and welcome way. So, yeah, those are all the things I love. Nothing that I dislike. However, there are two things that I am a little bit worried about. I did say that the game feels very familiar. There are things ripped directly from the game, and they're done well. Like, they're very welcome, word for word, shot for shot moments. I will say there are things that I'm a little bit afraid that because enough of it is so familiar that it might go into the realm of the too familiar in future episodes. For this episode, it was a great balance of keeping things the exact same and familiar while also adding in a whole bunch of really new stuff. It was a great balance, but I can easily see how they can mess that up in the next couple episodes. They didn't mess it up now. Hopefully they don't in the future episodes. And then finally, Bella Ramsey as Ellie. She's good. She's good. But there are a couple things that I'm curious about. The thing about Ellie from the game is that she had this charm. She was a teenager, but she acted very much like an adult. She had a way of acting and speaking that was very in your face, very crude, but you can't help but feel charmed by it. Bella Ramsey has that element. However, unlike Joel, where Pedro Pascal manages to keep him extremely familiar but extremely different, Bella Ramsey does that, but it's not the harmonious thing that Pedro Pascal does. It feels more new with Bella Ramsey as Ellie than familiar. We'll see how that pays off in the coming episodes because, if you know anything about the game, you don't really see Ellie very much at the very beginning. But the things that we do see are encouraging. Like, we do see one or two interactions between her and Joel at the very beginning, and what we do get there is a little bit charming. However, there's not enough there that makes me feel like my faith in her initial casting is justified. I'm sure it will be. I'm sure things will be fine. I'm just a little bit trepidatious. But that's it. This was a fantastic first start. Nothing I can complain about. I'm very happy, and I cannot wait for next week when part 2 comes out. I highly recommend people check it out, whether you're a fan of The Last of Us or you're just getting into it for the first time. Relive the magic of the first game. Now, Syb, sorry, I know I went on for a long time, but your thoughts on anything that I said?
Makes me happy to hear, because the translation of video games to TV has been, or movies, has been up to this point a universally terrible thing, with only a handful of highlights. That it's been quite concerning for a lot of us watching some of this stuff and hoping and anticipating that things don't spiral out of control, or that they're just terrible, or that they just stick with from a recent story and a recent release of a different show, also a beloved, well, they're two shows really now, I guess. So the one that came out and then the one that's been out for quite a while, and the fact that they've just kind of gone sideways to anything that was happening in the games. The main character is not even the main character anymore. It's like that kind of stuff just doesn't sit well with a lot of us. And so I'm hoping, and I'm really hoping that this isn't the case with this, that we get a product that is honest and true to the original goals of the original creator of the series. And that's what we want. That's what we've wanted for so long. It's not like the Fallout show that's coming out, right? We don't have a hope of the Fallout show rehashing an existing story, because that was never what was promised. And each game tells a completely different story in a completely different part of the country with similar themes. So we want that theming to stay the same, but we we want similar character sets that we've been used to seeing, but hearing that this has gone this way so far, it gives me hope that future shows will learn from the success and then try and replicate it by sticking to original plot story, the thing that made people love the game to begin with. That's what I'm most excited about. So it looks, so I'm pretty happy with this. I think this is a good direction coming. I won't be able to see the show for a little while yet, but this is making me go, oh, okay, this is actually good.
Yes, I think you would enjoy it, Syb. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised, along with the rest of you who might have been trepidatious like Syb and I were before today. So, did you guys have a chance to watch The Last of Us first episode on HBO? Please let us know what you thought in the comment section below.
Yep.
We'd love to generate a constructive, maybe more civil conversation than the types of conversations that have happened around the Last of Us franchise the last couple of years. We'd love to hear those types of comments and feedback. All right, let's move on. You know what? Yeah, okay. So, next topic. We've been, I think we've been talking about this on the podcast the last couple of weeks, Side. We've been hearing rumblings of Microsoft doing like their version of what is it called? Sony State of Play.
Yeah. They're gonna do so this has basically been confirmed now, more than confirmed from like all of this. Like, yes, we know that there's a show coming up for sure. That has been confirmed by Microsoft.
January 25th.
Yeah. But the 25th or 24th?
25th.
Okay. So we know that there's a show coming up and that they're going to cover that. And Starfield is not going to be there. But the rumor is on this one, and this has also been, for the most part, pretty much confirmed again by Todd Howard and that we don't know exactly everything that's going to be there, but we're going to be getting a show on that that's going to be a half an hour or more long. And then we're hearing all these crazy rumors have been going around nonstop. So we're hoping and we're excited for what we're finally going to see from Microsoft, because there's been a lot of things. I don't think we're going to get everything that we want. Everything that we want would be like every major thing that they've been hinting, teasing, kind of like I don't want
Fable.
them to overhype things that are still like a little ways away. But I would like to see how they're progressing on stuff, because, it is good to get that information. I don't think that it always needs to be I don't think it needs to be in a trailer format. I don't even necessarily need gameplay. I just want to hear where they think they're at. We have this thing where we don't want nothing but a game trailer that's pre-rendered and you can't tell anything about gameplay. And in some ways, we do want games to have a little bit more mystery and not overhype us. And I think that's part of the thing with game trailers is I think they do a bad job of overhyping the game. We get a different perspective on the game than what we actually end up getting, and that's not really good. And I think that the time to move past that is obviously been here for a long time now. But yeah, overall, we're going to be getting a bunch of stuff that we know is coming out right away. And then we're actually going to be getting this kind of showcase from Microsoft 3 to 4 times a year now.
Nice.
Is kind of what they're talking about, where they're going to do it every couple of months, which is really good, because there's a lot of, even for them to just kind of like showcase what's on, obviously the big seller, the Game Pass, even for them to just update people on, hey, what's there, what's going on. I was playing a little bit of King's Bounty and just kind of chatting with some of the people in our Discord. And one of the fellows was like, hey, I wonder if this is on, shout out to Game Notes. I wonder if this is on my Game Pass. Lo and behold, it was. So, and he was able to start downloading it directly from his phone when he wasn't home, so that by the time he got home, the game was ready for him to give it a try. And King's Bounty 2 it's a fun game. It's a bit of a throwback. It came out 2 years ago. It's decent if you like that genre. It grows on you. It definitely grows on you. The first 5 minutes is not a good representation of the game. You gotta play it for at least 8 hours before you start to go, okay, I really like this, or I really don't, which is a difficult thing to ask of some people. So don't jump into that if you don't want to. But just saying in general, that's what Game Pass is all about, is the discovery of cool games and cool things that you didn't know that you would end up loving so much. That's what's awesome about Game Pass, that they can give you access to a huge library of games for you to try out, basically for what you would typically spend, half your gaming budget on a month, which is, again, it's so much value packed into that. And I think that there's not enough communication about that and about the concepts that in circles, obviously from Microsoft's angle. So I'm glad they're doing this. Finally glad they're getting that out there. They've gotten the message that they need to do more stuff. And again, it's not necessarily about showing a flashy trailer. Flashy trailers are in fact quite bad for games, in my humble opinion.
Yeah.
What I want to see is gameplay. Or if they're really like with Starfield and with Prey was like this a little bit too, if they really are set on not including the community at all in the production and development of the game, then don't show anything right until the game is ready to go. That's that. And I believe Todd Howard really nailed this concept. Don't show us anything on certain games from certain studios at all until they're ready to go. And we're getting it within the next 2 months. I really do not believe that it's healthy to do it any other way. For certain titles, and again, I really have to emphasize it, for certain titles. For things that are more multiplayer, heavily reliant on balance, perhaps have a long history of community interaction with the development of the game, I think Larian has the best process there, where you put the game out into early access, and then you have your own forum set up, and you are constantly interacting with the community, constantly talking about things, constantly coming out with patches, big patches where it's like, the players all complained about this. So we went back to the drawing board and we decided to change this to that. And then that is now functions completely differently than the way this was. And then on the next project, we took that and this and we put them together. We got a thus. That's how this stuff goes. That is honestly like another good solid way. And I think there's room in the gaming universe for both of those things to coexist from major AAA titles. I really do. I think that's the way it needs to go. I think those are the two formats that we need to stick to. I really don't like this, hey, pay for pre-access to the play to beta, with like 2 weeks to go before launch, and then you just discover how bad it was, once you get in there. So yeah, stuff like that is we want to avoid that if at all possible. And it seems that Microsoft is learning its lesson on this. And again, I've stated before, I don't think that this will last forever. I think at some point in the future, they'll go back to being bad, because that seems to be what giant corporations do. But from the looks of it, this is probably going to be multiple decades away. I hope, fingers crossed,
right? Because
Phil has really come in and like really laid down a better path for stuff. Things
are set up over at Microsoft right now for things to get back to the Xbox original and Xbox 360 glory days. It's all a matter of whether or not they do one or two very key things. The whole concept of a Microsoft Direct, that's a very good thing. The things that they're showing off, for the most part, I think are to be expected. At this showcase, we know they're showing off Minecraft Legends, Forza, Redfall, which I'm actually warming up to the release of Redfall, surprisingly enough. And then, what was the other one? The Elder Scrolls Online, all that stuff. And then maybe there'll be a showcase of one or two other things that we're not expecting. What ultimately will save them or not is how they do handle some of the major releases that they've hinted at, how they handle Fable, how they handle Perfect Dark, how they handle Hellblade, stuff like that. We will see. But like you said, Syb, they do seem to be approaching this very cautiously, carefully. And as long as they don't mess up too much, which I don't think they will, like you said, I think things might bode well for the near future in regards to Microsoft, Xbox, and Xbox Game Pass. Mm-hmm. All right. I'm going to push the DnD stuff until after this next story, just because there's so much stuff there. I don't want to hurry you. This will be quick enough to get out of the way. So we're just going to rag on Ubisoft real quickly. We got to rag on, one of the major game developers every now and then. What is it? EA, Activision Blizzard, and now today we're talking about Ubisoft. So last Wednesday, Seb, Ubisoft made several announcements via an investor call. They've been messing up a little bit as of lately in regards to their financial status. So this past year, they released two major games. One was Mario plus Rabbids, or Mario and Rabbids, I don't know, Sparks of Hope, and Just Dance 2023. They had
now, those are pretty small titles. I mean,
well,
tell me,
hold on a second,
Max, tell me that things aren't so bad. Like things aren't so bad there that we're not going to get another delay of the Pirates ship game again, aren't we? That would be absolutely and totally insane. That's not going to happen, is it?
Well, I mean, you'd think, like, because it's been delayed, 5 times? Yeah, 5 times. It's been delayed a 6th time. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Oh, it has. Oh, dear.
Yeah, it's supposed to come out in like a couple months, but now the release date is any time between March of this year to April of 2024.
Oh, so, that's not good.
And that's significant for one major reason, is that between now and when Avatar Frontiers of Pandora and the next Assassin's Creed game comes out, they were expecting Skull and Bones to release to sort of provide a little bit of a holdover until those more major releases. Well, they're kind of screwed in that regard. And not only that, they also admitted to their investors that they had 3 unannounced titles that have been canceled. Yeah. Now.
Oh, yeah. That's some bad stuff there.
And just to remind people, that back in July they canceled Ghost Recon Frontline and Splinter Cell VR. So that's 5 total projects that have been canceled. Not a good look. Though thankfully, from what I understand, Splinter Cell remake and Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time remake are still in development. So. Thank God for that. Whether or not we see them or not is to be seen. Although,
at this point, yeah, I mean, we even know.
Yeah.
Oh Lord.
And then, of course, there's Beyond Good and Evil 2, which we all know has got to come out at some point. Oh wait, it's past Duke Nukem Forever in terms of how long it's been in development. Yeah. So
that doesn't sound good.
Yeah. So. A lot of people, like we do, it's funny, the amount of pleasure we see in Ubisoft messing up. You would think that they would take some sort of positive lesson from this, but no. Yves Guillemot, the CEO of Ubisoft, did say during this investor call that their plan is still to move towards a free-to-play model with some of their games like The Division and Rainbow Six, and also to adapt their more popular franchises to the changing market landscape where the focus is on quote-unquote mega brands. So that will include games like Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, The Division, Rainbow Six, 1 or 2 others that I probably can't think of. Yeah, it's not looking good. Now, the question is, will Ubisoft come out of this? I want to get your thoughts on this in a second, Simon. I welcome any disagreement, but I'm inclined to think that given the overall success of the Avatar franchise and how much money that new movie's been making, and of course, with every new Assassin's Creed game there is, they sell like 10 million plus titles, even if, they're basically the same game over and over again. I think they'll be able to.
That the fans of Assassin's Creed might get angry.
Okay, well, that's just for me.
I'm kidding.
There are people out there that enjoy them, and I guess more power to you. I don't really get it, but okay. I think they will be able to bounce back. Plus, they do have a pretty solid plan in place for more Assassin's Creed games. There's Assassin's Creed codenamed Jade, and then I don't know if that's the same one as the one they're planning on setting in Japan or China. Yeah, and then, they'll go back to franchises like they'll probably do The Division 3 and Far Cry 7 and all that crap. Saib, do you see things like maybe becoming a little bit more negative for Ubisoft? Do you think I'm being a little bit too optimistic on their behalf?
I think they're big. I think they've had a big problem for a very long time in the form of leadership, in the form of a lot of compounding issues that have been seeded along with the company from the very beginning, and that they never learned to fix those issues. They never got past those issues, and now those issues are giant weights dragging them down. Before, they had enough power to kind of keep them dragging along, but as they've gotten heavier and heavier, it's dragging them lower and lower and lower, and now it's kind of like now they're like their head was below water for a long time. They managed to kind of like get their head slightly above water, but things aren't improving. And we've said this in so many times. This is could be a tagline to our show, to all our shows on the podcast. It doesn't matter if you're a multi-billion-dollar company. All it takes for you to destroy yourself is for your bottom line to be one number in the red. That's all it takes. It doesn't matter if you're making $1 trillion a year. If you're spending $1,000,001 and you report that to your investors and they panic and they leave, you're toast, because income scales up. Expenses do not scale down as quickly as cost losses do. And this is so important to remember when dealing with these big companies, is that they might be $1 billion company today, but they have $1 billion worth of expenses.
Yep.
Perhaps 2, perhaps 3. Perhaps they're making twice as much, but the minute that they fall below how much it takes for them to sustain themselves and how much they're making, and if that doesn't change, then it's harder for them to shed. Like when they're like they need to downsize, it's so hard. You might as well just start a new company. It is so impossible to get your company back into the green when coming from being under. It's so impossible. It's so difficult that it's easier to just start a new company because of all of the weight of everything you have. You might go through your company and you might trim 50, 60, 80, 90% of the jobs. But so long as there's one person there that's just sitting there wasting your time and money, making bad calls, and you can't root that problem out, you're basically dead in the water. And so much of that is just dragging you down. So Ubisoft, the company famous for not allowing female playable characters into their games until the time that they allowed dogs to also be played in their game, and then how they all laughed about that around the boardroom table. That wasn't a problem. That's not like a current day like political issue. That's an issue of them not understanding the market in which they're playing. It's simply not a point where you can contest this and say, oh, well, it's political this, political that. No. It just boils down to the fact that Mario figured out a way to attract a lot more people to their player base by the time they made their second game. They made their second game and they figured this out. And you mean to tell me that Ubisoft couldn't figure that out? And that's just a tip of the proverbial iceberg. It's just one thing that some people look at and can debate about and whatnot, but it's just the tip of an iceberg. The problems that were there stem so far under the surface that, again, the possibility of getting this to be fixed is a serious question that I simply don't know if we will actually get that solved within this company before it's too late. Yeah. That's what that boils down to.
Before a change in leadership. And you made a really good point about just the slog, the long, slow tilt downward that Ubisoft has been on for the last 10 years. It's and you get to the point where you are right now. It's how did we get here? Well, I hope that they lost over $500 million last year in losses. I'm hoping that, like, we're always told that the only way that you can get a company to listen is if it affects their bottom line. I hope that this will be shocking enough that they'll be able to turn things around. They'll be able to put out the remakes of Splinter Cell and Prince of Persia. They'll be able to put out a couple of good Assassin's Creed games and Beyond Good and Evil 2, but I don't believe that's going to happen. But, we'll have to see. Maybe something positive will happen where, like, some sort of restructuring will come because somebody will come in and buy them out. But it's too soon to tell. Anyways, that's your update on Ubisoft. DnD, we talked about this last week. Syb, go. What are the updates?
So the update is that Wizards of the Coast came out and said, guys, we hear you. We understand you're angry with us. We care so much about you. Mostly our profits and our bottom line, but we care about what you said. And you know what you said? You know what? You're right on some of this stuff. And now, trust me, despite the fact that we said that this was going to come out on the 13th and be active on the 13th, despite the fact that we came out and we had sent this agreement, this new license out to a whole bunch of major companies and signed deals with them and gave them a better cut of this deal before we even announced this. Trust us, this version that leaked, it was not actually the real version. How crazy of you guys to think that we would actually run with that. There was a whole bunch of things in there, like taking all your YouTube content that you make about our product and forcing you into an agreement where you guaranteed to give us some of your money too. And, at a moment's notice, we can change that to 100% of a dollar every single dollar that you make if we really wanted to. That was in the wording, but we actually removed that because that was never going to be in there for sure, guys. You just don't listen to us, okay? I'm being highly facetious at the moment. I don't know if you can tell.
If I can tell, everybody else can tell.
So they have come out. They've said that it wasn't their plan to release it as it was, but that didn't change the fact that they were already going to go back and rewrite it. It wasn't even going to be called 1.1 anymore. It's now going to be called 2.0 because they've grown, they've changed, they know what to do now. And that some people are going to say that the community's reaction of anger and frustration was warranted and that they won, but really at the end of the day we all won with this new agreement. We're all winning with this new agreement. You don't know what it's all going to contain right now because we're not telling you that, but we've all won collectively together. We've all won, and we've all come out.
You sound so much like Kamala Harris right now, man.
and if can you imagine a world together? And it's like, are you pulling the Hollywood move right now? Are you serious? This is what you did not win here. The community has not won here. You're still doing something that will destroy your community because you're insane. And you're so arrogant that you think that you could still turn this into a victory. What is wrong with you? How do you still think that this is a win for you? You've lost almost every single person who comments and makes content about you. Almost everybody, even people who were lapdogs. I think it's the only word I can. They were lapdogs of this company a couple of weeks ago, and even now they're like, guys, my community is so angry about this. I don't think we're going to be able to continue with this anymore. We're going to have to cover something else. Like, your die-hard fans, the people who swore they would never leave you. That's what they're saying right now.
This reminds me so much of, like, going back to the whole Xbox thing. I remember when the Xbox One announcement was made. I've been with Xbox ever since the beginning. I've been with them for 12 years. And then when that announcement was made, it was so bad that I was like, you know what? I'm going PS4. I haven't owned a PlayStation in a long time. But if this is the way you're going to treat your consumer base, by making everything online, by making it so you can't trade your games, screw you guys. This echoes that in terms of complete and utter betrayal. And we went over all the reasons why, like, Wizards of the Coast is messing up everything last week, how they're going to try and steal all the work that people have done and the money that they've made based off of the old agreement through the open game license, OGL, right? So what, I gotta ask you, Side, like, what did they say to try and convince people that they have been heard and that they're going to try and change moving forward, if anything?
So like I said, they did remove that bit about taking money from people who review their content, which was like, I mean, it was like, so the wording in their original document from multiple lawyers basically said they're going after everybody. If you make a video commenting about a product that has elves and dwarves and orcs and humans that go on adventures together, they might just come after you. Doesn't matter if you're talking about them or not. You're talking about something that's close enough to their product that they're going to, like, take action against you. That was one of the most ridiculous things that I heard, because fair use YouTube videos reviewing content, that has been done from a legal standpoint, period. Like even Nintendo had to step away from this, you know, in their brilliance of dealing with the community. The fact that they again and again and again came after people watching.
Look how that worked out. They had to back down.
They had to back down from it because it just wasn't working. They were getting too many. Like, fair use is fair use, and there are places in the world where they spit on the idea of fair use. They spit on the concept that you can't review a product, especially if your product is negative. There are companies who think that. Yeah. And there are companies who honestly believe with every ounce of their being that if you're not groveling at their feet, you don't have a right to talk about their product, which is kind of a disgusting way to think. And it's something that I hope goes the way of the dinosaur, in that, you know, not that it goes extinct, but that it dies in a horrible, fiery, you know, inferno of death and destruction, where the sky is blacked out and you feel every fiber of your being crushed beneath a mountain of rock. I might have gone a little overboard there, but I think that stands pretty decently. It's just a disgusting mentality. And they, lo and behold, removed that, because, again, the idea that they could get this through a legal challenge was extraordinarily questionable. Like bigger companies have tried and failed, and how they thought that they were going to be able to go to YouTubers who make a video about Illustrae, the goddess of the good goddess of the drow and half elves. How on earth they thought that was going to fly in a legal challenge is completely and totally beyond me, especially because, again, they didn't invent almost anything. I have to reinforce this. D&D did not create anything original. They just took generalized concepts and threw them together. Who's the top bad guy in the world of D&D? The arch devil above all devil. He's Asmodeus. Okay, where do I know that name from? Probably from the Bible. What are elves? What are treants? What are halflings? What are any of the creatures in their entire story? Did they create any of those? No, they didn't.
What are the 9 levels of hell from Bator? Dante, yeah.
God. It's so arrogant for them to say, hey, we're famous for taking everything in history and throwing it into this blender and creating a smoothie of awesome adventureness, and we believe that we own everything. The very concept was discussing, which is why the original creators of D&D, the people who did that, they were humble enough to realize that they did do that, and they were humble enough to create a legal policy that they intended to be there forever, because they've all come out and said this, that this was a created thing that came from the whole understanding of human concepts on fantasy and mythology, and that they used those concepts and combined them to create an adventure world in which people could adventure in, and therefore it belonged to everybody. It wasn't theirs because they didn't invent all of it. But these idiots who run the company now, today, think that they did create everything. And it's what does that mean, where there's a person who they have no intrinsic skills or anything? They just come in, they look at a thing that somebody else has made, and they're like, this is such a beautiful thing, this is so awesome, I made this. Yes, I made this. Look at me, look at how amazing I am for making this. Everybody deserves to pay me for this now.
They're called
because
pop stars.
I made this. It's so insane, and it's so selfish, and it's so off the bloody levels of logic and just general conceptual understanding that it boggles my brain to think that anybody would be this arrogant to say, oh yeah, no, I made this all. Everything I made is this. I am writing a fantasy series, and in that fantasy series, I take from a lot of my favorite games growing up. The main race is derived from my favorite sci-fi race of all, which is the Asari. It's a direct nod to the Asari, combining it with mythological creatures, and that is not something that I fused them together. Was it solely my idea? No. I took a concept like all writers do. They take one concept and combine it with something else. And the fact that these people assumed that they had skipped that step, despite the fact that it was a clearly derivative of human experience and culture and mythology, it's like, wow, you are so arrogant. That's still pretty much where it's at. Right now, they've said they're going to retreat, they're going to rewrite it, they're going to come out with a 2.0, and it's going to be even better than 1.1 and the original, which I find absolutely laughable, because I would make the original better by adding a single word that says that this is irrevocable, indefinite. Adding in just that indefinite clause to the law would make it a perfect document for them to work from. And again, if D&D and anybody at Wizards of the Coast, any of you sods, absolute garbage people are listening, you want ideas on how to make more money? Make a better product. Make better services. You have so much just sitting there waiting for you. How many people want to write their own character, want to write their own class? How many amazing personal stories are out there that if you just had a half a brain when it came to interacting with your community, you could be like, hey, if you write a cool enough character, cool enough storyline, we will include this permanently into official lore of our official universe. And we will continually adopt new things, and you'll become a part of the universe. And in exchange, we will just, we'll do a new deal with you, and we'll cut some profits from your a new book series. That alone probably would have just raised their level of how much their community loved them, because now every single person who had written something has that potential to get their character added into the actual canon of this immense universe that's basic. I mean, there's so many different dimensions and everything. You could literally you can include literally tens of thousands of people's personal creations, as long as they were I became God, not that, but just normal stories. If they had just did that and then say, and all we would ask is that, you give us a cut of like, how much you're making in your book sales. And I bet you there'd be a lot of people who would like totally go for that. Like, yes, this is my dream to have my character be officially added. My character, my class, the story, the city, the dragon, the monster, whatever, anything, everything.
Yeah.
And just have that be like, yeah, Wizards is only asking for a 5% cut. And for me to like, officially like, really sponsor them, that's one thing. We've talked about miniatures. We've talked about, like the fact that they don't have a virtual gameplay system. Like that's anything that's in any way, shape, or form valuable to a player base. The fact that they don't have any of that, the fact that they've been so behind on a whole bunch of stuff. Hey, why don't you make a whole bunch of companies that make these cool things? My brother got something for Christmas, which is a dice roll tower. You put your dice under the top of this tower and you push a button and the tower opens up and your dice fall down the tower, rolling them as they go. And they come out into this little like fenced off area. It looks like a tower with like a little like grass, like thing and little foliage in the front. He was so happy with that at Christmas time. He loved it. It's easily one of his top 5 presents that he's ever received at Christmas time. And he absolutely loved that. Why don't you make something like that? Like again, it's like all you have to do is go to a nerd fair, walk around. And again, all you have to do to like reach out your hand to some of the people who make these products to say, would you like to be officially licensed? We're going to make this amazing storefront that people can just shop for D&D stuff. We will put your thing up there. We will sell it. We'll handle the shipping, all of that. So long as you can continue to make the quotas of like, what you're actually agreeing to sell, we will facilitate your ease in selling. And we're going to take less of a cut than like, what is it, like Etsy and all the other, websites that sell this kind of stuff. And it's like all they would have had to do was just do something like that, and suddenly they could start making thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, thousands of dollars off of individual products, millions and millions of dollars overall. It's like if you really wanted to do something more, you could have done something like that. But instead, they've just gone down this route of like, oh, no, we're going to find a way to crush our competition. Well, congratulations. The only thing that you've done so far is you've
crushed yourselves.
You've united everybody against you. So many content creators are now making their own systems, variation of their own systems. Pathfinder has officially come out and said that they're dropping the 1.0 license from their second edition that they've done, which is something that apparently they were sort of prepared to do, but they were including the license just for the sake of being friendly to D&D and Wizards of the Coast. But now they're going to drop that. They're going to create their own thing. We're seeing a lot of big moves. Cobalt, was it Cobalt Arena or something else? Anyways, one of the other big competitors said that they're coming online and that they're going to join up with this too. And really, you're seeing just an enormous exodus from what it was, because here was the ultimate secret to D&D. You didn't need them. You don't need anything from Wizards of the Coast to do a tabletop experience on your own if that's what you're really interested in. If you really want to do it, you can just get a bunch of sheets of paper and sit around a table and just use your imagination.
Yeah.
You don't actually have to have any of the tools and any of the products that they sell. And for somebody who knew that, to go out on this binge of just like everything is ours, pay us or else, it's like it was the ultimate most foolish thing you could possibly have done. And now they've set up their own competition in just a wave that is probably going to landslide them and crush the life out of them, which is going to be somewhat hilarious to watch from a proverbial viewpoint, obviously.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't see how it could end in any other way. And that element that you just said at the very end there, how it's the whole tabletop thing isn't limited to the way that Dungeons and Dragons does it. Anybody else can do it. Anyways, that's your little bit of an update on that. We'll continue to update as the weeks go by. I'm sure this is going to be one of the biggest stories of the next 12 months. We'll definitely be covering the way that the sort of fallout of that. Anyways, we're over an hour. We got to wrap it up. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for this edition of Maximum News. Lots of stuff to talk about. There's going to be a whole lot more coming this year. Hopefully a lot more positive, and I'm sure that'll be the case for the first 3 months of this year, because there's a lot of awesome games that are supposedly coming out. Atomic Heart, Wolong Fallen Dynasty, Resident Evil 4, all that great stuff. If you like this episode of the podcast, make sure you give this episode a like. That helps out a lot. Make sure you leave a comment, like I said before, whether it's about the Last of Us thing or anything else that we talked about. Please let us hear from you. I want to thank Syb, as always, for doing the show with me. Syb, do you want to tell people about the main channel real quick?
Yeah, check out the main channel, Triple S League, on the YouTubes.
Cool. And you guys can just find me on my main channel, just at Max Derrat. I'll put links to both of those in the description box. Thanks, guys, again. And until we do this again next week, I want to remind you guys, as always and as per usual, stay yellow.